Peace, family. Welcome to another episode of Broken Theory. Today we got the Native Instruments Director of Artist Relationships and Industry Relationships,
Finesse, baby.
Dave Godowsky. How you doing, my brother?
What's up? I'm good. How are you?
I definitely appreciate you taking time to do this show. Talk about your music journey. How did that get to be started?
Yeah, so it's kind of been a long and winding road. It's been really all over the place. And it started off just as someone who makes music. You know, that's kind of how or someone who loves music more than anything else in the world. Since I was very young, like my earliest memories are going through my parents' record collection and sitting at the record player and just kind of being fascinated with like everything from the songs to the music to like the liner notes on the LPs to like the needle on the vinyl.
Yeah. How
that worked, the big speakers and just the whole thing. The buttons on the stereo, when I was like 5-6 years old. And then I kind of got into like how do you make this? Like how can you create this?
At what age were you thinking that?
Really young, like 6 years old, 7 years old. Not in a sophisticated way or anything, but we had a piano, and so I'd go and sit at the piano and like make up little songs and try to play back melodies I was hearing. And I wasn't particularly good at it. I was just interested in it. I'd be like, how come if I hit this key and this key, it sounds good, but if I hit these two together, it sounds bad. And just a fascination with music and how it works. And
absolutely,
I guess that's where it all started at the very beginning.
So at what point did you decide, okay, I'm going to start recording myself?
Oh yeah, that was probably in high school. I think it was I was probably about 14 years old or something. And it was really just being bored with my friends in the summer. We didn't really have much to do. I grew up in Maine. So we were just like, people would just kind of hang out. We'd like go in the woods and like build a fort in the woods. And like, we were bored and like we went to our friend's house and I forget why, but he had a bunch of music gear. He had like drums and guitars and stuff.
Wow.
So we just picked, I remember my friend Jeff picked up a bass and I picked up a guitar. And we didn't even know which was which or what they were or anything. We were like, what are these things? Well, what if I do this and you do that? Oh, that sounds cool. And just sort of like, we didn't know one note from the next or anything. It was just something to do.
Looking back on that, do you know which one that you grabbed first? Or like,
I grabbed the guitar and he grabbed the bass. And that's why we ended up forming a band together. And I was the guitarist and he was the bassist. And it's literally because it's just what we happened to pick up.
Yeah, that's so awesome.
Yeah.
What was the name of the band?
It was called the Terry Ferguson Trio. And it was a joke name because there were 4 of us in the band and nobody was named Terry Ferguson. It was just like I don't even remember where the name came from. It was like, I think it was Terry was the singer's mom's name.
Okay.
And it was just like we were like 16 years old.
Yeah,
we
just kind of like trolling pretty much.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That's awesome.
So it was like, we'll call it the Terry Ferguson Band. And then someone was like, why don't we call it the Terry Ferguson Trio? And there's 4 of us, just to be ridiculous. And yeah.
That's awesome. Do you guys still make music together?
No, that was just like when we were kids. We played when we were in high school and stuff. And yeah, from there, I was still like pretty committed to the idea of being a songwriter. But then I quickly discovered the reality of having, bills and stuff.
Yeah.
So I was like, how does
different.
this work? how are all these people able to just like be musicians and songwriters? Like, how does everyone pay their rent? And like, how do people have cars? And like, I don't get it. Like, where does you know? And I think the reality is a lot of those people have like trust funds and stuff.
Yeah, definitely.
You know,
it's their
because if you
project.
don't, yeah, it doesn't really work. If you're like, unless you come from money or something, you can't just, you know, do that for a living right off the bat.
Yeah.
So I didn't realize that when I was a kid. So I kind of learned the hard way, you know, or just like learned it quickly anyway. And that's how I got into the music industry, because I thought, well, there's no way I can afford to just do this, but maybe I could find a job, you know, maybe I could find some kind of job in music. And I stumbled into like a record label, getting like an internship at a record label. And then from there, I ended up having a whole career in the music business.
So when you got the job at the record label, what were some of the tasks that you were doing starting out?
Yeah, I was a publicity assistant. So I was in the PR department, like, you know, sending out, this was still back when it was all CDs. This was like 2004, maybe 2003, 2004. So it was kind of the tail end of the CD era, but it was still like, you know, we would get a press release, write a press release, print it out, fold it up with a CD, and put it in an envelope and send it, you know, do that to hundreds of writers and editors of music magazines and newspapers and all those places, you know, and then they would review the album, and then people would read it and they'd go buy the album. I mean, it was like a great, you know, the old music business. It was a great system. It's all gone now.
Yeah, it's completely demolished. I do want to ask you, where do you see it going as far as that being said? You know, the way that we've moved from buying physical copies and, you know, we're streaming now. Do you see it ever going back to that?
Not really. I think there's smaller groups of fans. I think more people are thinking about creation over consumption. You know, it used to be such a passive experience, you know, like you would just, even if you go back even further, like if you want to listen to music, you did like go to your room. You know, you have to like go home, go to your room, put the music on and sit there and listen. You
have to find it first too.
Yeah, find it. You have to like go to the store, get a copy of the thing, take it home, put it on. But I mean, it was in some ways it was passive, in other ways it was really proactive, like in terms of what you had to do just for the opportunity to listen. You had to, you know, there was like a finite amount. There definitely is like a correlation there between quantity and how it's kind of valued in culture.
I think we're very lucky being able to experience both. Because I mean, for me at least, when I do tune in on streaming platforms when something is dropped, you know, at least to make sure I like the album before I buy it. But then after that, you know, I purchase all physical copies of every album that I like front to back, you know. So
oh, cool. What kind of is it vinyl mostly?
Mostly vinyl, yes. I love vinyl.
Yeah.
I was gonna ask
there's more to it than you know, there's just something about, I'm convinced there's something that's still in music that no one really understands. You know, there's something going on that like we think we understand everything about it, but we're just looking at what's on the outside, like the frequencies and the waveforms and the, you know, like we're looking at what's right in front of our eyes, but there's something that's captured in a recording that the most important things are kind of invisible. And there's something also about listening, like you're saying, like when you hold a physical record and put it on, it's more complicated than just you know, what shows up in the waveforms.
From the ground up, we build beats that resonate with your soul. But in the lab, We don't just create beats, we manifest sonic worlds. Every drum hit, every sound or sample is calibrated to resonate with the frequency of your imagination. Let's build a universe where your sound reigns supreme for your next project. You can get in touch with me on all platforms at Fly Nonsense or flynonsense.com. Let's get it.
Finesse, baby.
100%. What does your creative process look like? And are there specific routines or habits that you do to stay productive and stay inspired?
Yes, I have a unique and very bizarre answer to that. And it all started, I guess this was like 13 years ago. I was living in Boston, and I was sort of in a community of songwriters in the Boston area, and we all kind of played in each other's bands and with each other at different venues, and all kind of knew each other's songs and were friends. And it was just sort of a songwritery scene. Mm-hmm. And there was a grant, actually. There was like a grant for
Finesse,
to sort of its purpose was to like fund the New England songwriting scene, because it's sort of been dating back to like Bob Dylan and like Joan Baez and Joni Mitchell, like old days of like folk music. Mm-hmm. It was always a big scene for that. And it's a privately funded grant, so someone created this thing to sort of keep that legacy alive. So we applied for a grant that would fund a week-long songwriting retreat. And our whole pitch was that there's all these great songwriters in and around Boston, but no one can afford to do it full time or afford to spend enough time just focused on the craft. Mm-hmm. So what if the grant would fund a week where we would take these like 10 or 15 people and put them on an island in the middle of a lake. So it's like an island that's totally off the grid, and allow everyone just to spend a week focused on songwriting. And we got the grant and we did it, and it was like the best week ever.
Wow.
And then we applied for it again and got it again the following year. And it got to the point where they just said, we're going to grandfather you in. So like every year until we tell you otherwise, you're in. So we did like, and we still do it. We do it the first week of June every year.
Wow.
And that's become I've gotten so used to it. I like can't, it's the only way I can really write. It's like every year, the first week of June, I go to this island and just go nuts for a week. Although all year long, I'm like recording little voice memos on my phone and stuff. Yeah. But I sort of record them and then forget about them. Mm-hmm. And then the first week of June, I go to this island, take out my phone and go through like 100 little voice notes. And most of them are terrible, but like every now and then I'll find something and be like, oh, that's really good actually. And then that's where I kind of turn it into a song.
That's awesome. I mean, I know it's a private experience, but definitely let me know if you need any videographers. I'd love to, capture that for you and help
cool.
bring that out.
Yeah.
I'm definitely in the process of putting together a writers camp like that.
Cool.
But like for beat makers. But it's going to be we're not going to be on the island. It's going to be probably in a studio or an Airbnb, and we're just going to make the best music that we could ever make, and I'm hoping to turn it into
idea.
Like, a yearly thing, like you said, if not quarterly.
Finesse, baby.
Yeah. Let me know if you need another set of eyes, putting it together, because I've done this so many times. There's a lot of little details that 100%. Come up that, you wouldn't think of, but they end up being important. Like there's little stuff like meals and how people share what they're working on. And little things that don't seem like a big deal, but after doing it for so many years, we've sort of perfected it.
That's amazing. Well, I can't wait to pick your brain. You know, on a side note, we'll definitely have that conversation. Speaking of collaboration, I mean, you've worked with a variety of people in your career. What do you look for in a collaborator?
Just someone who, honestly, the number one thing is excitement. Someone who I'm excited about working with for whatever reason, and someone who is excited about working. And it can be for any reason. I might be excited because they're unbelievably talented. I might be excited because they're unbelievably funny. You know, it could just be anything. It doesn't even need to be musical. There's some excitement. That's one thing I've noticed, and that leads to the best results.
100%.
And the lack of it is always bad.
Yeah, 100%.
One red flag. Yeah. Like a big red flag is when someone's like,
finesse,
I gotta record these songs. If I'm like, why are you making this record? If they say something like, I've had these songs forever, I just gotta get them out so I can move on to the next thing. Like, I just almost like they feel an obligation to just do it. That's like a really bad sign. Like nothing good ever comes that way. No, you know, if you're not excited, just don't record it.
Yeah, 100%. You have to be excited. And I mean, if you're not your own biggest fan, then what do you think the rest of the world will do when they hear you?
Yeah.
You know, people can pick up on the energy.
Totally. I think every great song, every great recording comes from a place of excitement, even if it's like dark, or like there's even some music where the music itself is kind of down or like sad, but I think the people making it were still excited to make it because they knew it was good.
Yeah, it like sad music and happy music, they do something to you when you're in that frequency. You know, when you're listening to a sad song and you're sad, it just, I don't know, it's just like a comfort blanket to your mood, I guess you could say. And same thing when you're happy, it just adds to the excitement. How do you stay ahead of trends and continuously innovate in your work?
Well, I'd stay ahead of it mostly for my work at Native Instruments. More than my own music is pretty non-innovative. Like I tend to record using like guitars and pianos and things like and I'm not totally dead set on that. Like I think it would actually be fun to change that a little bit, but traditionally I kind of like being a little boring with it. Like I want to see if I can make something good without using many tools, you know?
Yeah, I think that's what some of the greats do, you know what I mean, to be honest, because that's where the real skill comes out.
But I do stay up with trends for my work, you know, outside of my own music. Everything else I do is working with other people, other producers, and then, you know, Native Instruments, Isotope, Plug-in Alliance, other engineers. Just for all that, I got to stay up with trends. So and that's all just from conversations. I'm always like, every conversation I'm in with every artist, producer, engineer, I'm always asking like, what are you excited about? What are you into? Like, are there any new anythings? Yeah, and that's the best way to do it. It's always just from real relationships.
100%. Finding balance in mixing and mastering can feel like chasing a moving target. Just when you think you nailed it, another detail emerges, pulling you right back into the process. That's where we come in. We mix and master with precision and purpose, fine-tuning every element until your music resonates with the story you want to tell. Let's make your sound unforgettable. You can tap in on all platforms at Fly Nonsense or flynonsense.com.
Finesse, baby.
What would you say is some advice to someone trying to have real relationships in the music industry?
That's a good question. I guess it depends what part, you know, because it's such a huge industry.
Maybe as an artist.
Yeah, as an artist, it's just finding good collaborators. You know, like, I think there might be a misconception that someone creates something so brilliant they can just sit at home and create it and put it out into the world, and the world embraces it and they become, you know, rich and famous. Like, because that's how it seems to some people, you know, because they're like, well, I had never heard of this person before. And they drop the album and suddenly it's the biggest thing in the world. But they don't see what's going on behind the scenes. And so often it's about who you know.
Yeah.
You know, it's not always even just about skill level, because we all know people who are incredibly talented but don't get any attention. And we know people who get all the attention and aren't that talented. So, like, 100%. You know, a lot of it is who you know, and it's not always in a bad way either. I mean, it can be like about collaboration, meeting other producers, artists, engineers, who are just good at what they do, and just being open to working together too, because oftentimes the best things come unexpectedly. So, like, saying yes as much as possible. You know, you never know if someone wants to make a record together. You never know what's going to lead to something.
Yeah.
So, like, putting yourself out there, finding people, is the most important thing.
100%. I must say, man, I'm really honored to have any type of association to you guys and Native Instruments. I definitely looked up to you guys a lot when I reached out, and I was in the process of starting my musical journey. I just want to give you your flowers and thank you for, you know, taking a chance on me. You know what I mean?
No, it's my pleasure.
And just giving me the opportunity to work with you guys, because, you know, at that time in my life, I wasn't in the position to do any of that. You know what I mean? And it really pushed my music to where I believed in myself a lot more than what I believed in, you know, before that.
Wow.
Because I didn't have the tools. Well, I felt like the excuse that I was giving myself was I didn't have the tools to do what I wanted to do.
Right,
and then,
right.
You know, I networked with you, and now there was no excuse. There was no excuse. I had to get to work. So
right,
I definitely appreciate you, man. 100%. I want to ask you.
My pleasure.
Are there any books that have helped you during your journey as an artist?
Oh, that's a good question. Man, not that I can think of. Actually, hang on one second. Let me just look at my bookshelf. Yeah, not really. It's funny. Like, I remember like the Donald Passman book. It's like Everything You Need to Know About the Music Business. That's always been a good one, just for like understanding the industry. But I think like a lot of that can be found online now. Although there is something nice about having the book, like a physical book, just whenever you feel like it, you can just flip to a page and read it at your own speed. You don't need to like watch a video or something. So yeah, and that's probably the only book that I felt like actually helped me, and it was totally on the music industry side. On the creative side, not really. I read the Rick Rubin book, but I really didn't like it. No, it just felt like it should have been like 10 or 20 pages long instead of 400 or something. Yeah. It was a lot of like, you know, like it's a lot of like out there rambling. Also a lot of stuff that's only really applicable to people, I think, with like a lot of money. I don't think it was intended to be like that, but a lot of it is sort of like, you know, if you could just spend a month looking at the clouds and the birds and like letting, you know, the art speak through you, and you have access to all the means and the resources to do that and have it be captured. Well, like most people don't have that, you know. I think he's so used to working with superstars and stuff. It's great advice if you're like going to go work with Adele for a month or something. But yeah, I found it really hard to read, and like, I don't know, I didn't think it was that useful.
Finesse, baby.
No, I understand what you're saying. As far as for me, I like the book because like I was using it as far as like kind of like a reminder, based off of like what he was saying, that there aren't really any limits for creativity before I was going into a session. So I didn't really read the book continuously like through one sitting. You know what I mean?
Yeah. There are some good points
over time.
Yeah, I remember reading it and thinking like every now and then I was like, ooh, that was good. Like, you know, there's like a handful of like little diamonds in there where you're like, that's a really good anecdote. But yeah, I felt like it probably could have been like very short, or it could be like a set of note cards, you know, like a pack of like 50 little note cards that have little bits of advice on them or something.
Yeah, people would have still bought it.
Yeah,
100%. How does Native Instruments choose artists that they collaborate with, and what qualities do you look for in a partnership?
I look for the number one thing is talent and people who are doing something interesting. Again, coming back to the excitement, you know, people who are excited about what they do and good at what they do, and are doing something interesting in some way. You know, and that's how I connected with you at the beginning, you know, like when you reached out, because I could tell that you were good at what you did and that you had something to say. That's the other thing, you know, feeling like someone has something to say as opposed to just doing it like for a job or something.
100%. Yeah, I mean, I've been through a lot, and time again, I feel like I've always been shown that, you know, I'm meant to keep creating with music and help other artists just in general, whether it be, you know, they don't have anybody to do the cover art, or they don't have a videographer to do their show, and, you know, they need help with that. I don't mind going out of my way to make sure, you know, they're looked out for, because I had nobody to do that for me.
Yeah, and that goes a long way. Like, you know, just in a sort of karma way. Like, you're putting enough good stuff out there that good stuff is going to come back.
Absolutely. How do you see the advancements of music technology, particularly in Native Instruments, and like influencing the future of music production?
Yeah, I love it. I mean, I think the especially in the last couple of years, I think all the AI stuff and all the new technology that's happening is really amazing. It's just helping. It's helping in the greater interest of evolving music and music creation and production. You know, like anything, there's also some
finesse, baby.
There's also some downsides. There's like, you know, AI is a good example. Like, when it's used right, it can just be like a total game changer and open doors and enable people to create things they never could before, and it's unbelievable. And then if it's used wrong, like if someone's just using it to like generate a song by pushing a button or something, that's obviously not good. But I also think like, so I often hear people talk about generative AI in a sort of like apocalyptic way. Like it's, oh, this, you know, like now no one's going to write songs anymore. Everyone's just going to have the computer do it for them. Like, I think that's just crazy. That's like, I
think it's because everything is so saturated nowadays. It's like already, I think they say 60,000 songs a day. So yeah, once it becomes, you push a button and the music spits out, it's probably going to turn to 600,000
Yeah,
very
exactly.
soon.
Yeah. But I don't think that actually means anything.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't bother me because there's always been like tons and tons of shitty music.
Mm-hmm.
We just didn't all know about it. Like there's always been like mediocre songwriters and like bad songs. It's just most of them were just sitting on people's floor or like sitting in someone's phone or something. Yeah. And now, you can put it out there, but I don't think that means anything. Like no one's gonna, it's not like all that music is suddenly gonna be on the radio or something. Yeah. Like,
You have to tune your frequency to that dial in order to tap in. It doesn't exist to somebody unless they are moved in a way to do that.
If anything, it's going to force people to make better music because they're going to be forced to cut through all the noise. There's going to be so much more of it. It's going to put the pressure on to like, how do you find the good stuff? And it'll force people to find some way to filter it out. So I think it's all good. I don't see it as like, I'm not pessimistic about any of it.
100%. What is some of the most impressive AI things that you've seen with music so far?
Yeah, I mean, all the stuff iZotope does is pretty crazy. Like Ozone and RX and they were doing that before anyone ever talked about it. It's funny, like I'll see a lot of attention about AI driven plugins and stuff. Like it's all new, but iZotope's been doing it for like probably like 7 or 8 years or something. It's been a while because a lot of it is actually machine learning,
Finesse, baby.
which is similar but not exactly the same. Like a lot of times people say AI, but they mean machine learning, which is really just a complex programming. It's not like trying to get something to like think for itself and make creative decisions. It's actually the opposite. It's the opposite of making a creative decision. It's trying to repeat a process that's been done 10,000 times. Or like music rebalance in RX. That's the like stem separation tool. So you can drop in a song that you don't have like individual tracks for. It's just like an MP3 or something, or like a single wave file, and it can go in and take out the drums and the bass and the vocal. It does that by learning, which frequencies are drums and which frequencies are not drums. By, you can feed into it like, here's a song, now here's just the drums, now here's everything but the drums. And then you do that again. Here's another song, and it analyzes every single frequency and everything you can analyze. And then here's just the drums by themselves, and here's everything but the drums. And then look for the differences and the similarities. And it does that 10, 20,000 times until it's able to analyze something. And based on the past 20,000 times of doing it, it can figure out which frequencies are drums and which ones are not. So that's all just machine learning. And most of the time, that's what people are talking about, as opposed to like AI, as in like artificial intelligence, like imitating a human intelligent creative decision.
Yeah, that's a different story. What's some advice that you would give your younger self when first starting off in music?
Probably to think less and just do more. I think I used to think that if you think about it enough, you can craft like a master plan for success or something. That like if you work hard enough, you can figure out the path to success, as opposed to just if you work hard enough, you can succeed. But I think the vast majority of the time, like 90% of the time, the path to success is unknown and it's changing. And people who are incredibly successful, they succeed along a path that they never saw coming. So the idea that you're going to like figure out the master plan and then execute it to success that's not usually how it happens. You know? So 100%. Like it's important to like be cool with that and just know that if you work hard enough and keep practicing and just have faith, just the faith in that process, that's the best you can do. And just also just making stuff. Just like make stuff and put it out there. Don't overthink it. Yeah. You know, like all these tools and everything that, you know, we can obsess over. Like you were saying before, you used to, you didn't have any excuse. Once you got all the tools, you didn't have any excuse anymore. It's so often that people use that as an excuse, but the reality is none of it really matters. You can make a hit record with nothing. You know?
100%.
So like,
I think what I was clinging on to, you know, why I said that, was like slight perfectionism type thing. You know, I was looking at it like, well, when I start my YouTube journey, I want it to be like this. And I had this image in my mind that like, this was how it's supposed to be. And I was all wrong. I mean, I see it now, from the other side, but just going into meeting all these other new artists, I tried to let them know that like none of that matters. You know, it's just a different process as far as the way that you are creating the song. When you have less options to change up the sample or do the drums a certain way, you're forced to create in a different perspective.
Yeah,
you know,
definitely.
I mean? And that could be a gift and a curse. You know, it's up for you to decide, the creator.
Yep. And that's always the path to success, is like riddled with failure. So you got to be cool with failure. Like you got to be willing to fail, and like just know that when you're failing, you're like, good, that's good. The path to success has failure like all over it. If you're not seeing all that failure, then you're not on the right path. So it's actually
100%.
Good.
100%. But hey man, I really appreciate you taking time, you know, to chat with me. Is there anything that we can look forward to that's coming out soon? We got less than a minute left.
There's a bunch of stuff coming from Native that I'm not allowed to talk about yet, but it'll be next month. It's in September. So yeah, in September there's going to be some extremely cool stuff that I'm not just saying that because I work there. Yeah. But it really is some cool new stuff.
Well, I'll definitely be on the lookout for that. And once again, man, I really appreciate you for everything that you've done, and also for
appreciate
showing up,
you too.
You know, for the podcast.
Of course.
Join the conversation. We're looking for artists, producers, and brands with a story to tell, ready to make an impact into the world and help inspire the people listening. Be a guest, be a sponsor, be a part of the movement. Just reach out. Let's build together. You can find me at Fly Nonsense on all platforms or flynonsense.com. Let's get it.
Finesse, baby.